So my name is Shripal. I'm from OCBC Bank, and I'm working as an emerging tech architect within Group Technology Architecture of OCBC. So I have like total of 21 years of experience, and OCBC I'm specializing only in quantum tech. So when it comes to quantum tech, I'm referring to quantum computing and as well as quantum safe communication. And I also worked as a blockchain solution architect in Standard Chartered Bank and IMD and GovTech. So IMD is a government agency within Singapore. And I studied in NUS. So basically, I left India way back in 1998. So I got a scholarship from EDB. So after my studies, I got citizenship and also the PR first, then citizenship. So I just want to highlight what is OCBC. OCBC is Overseas Banking Corporation Limited. And you will be surprised to know that during World War II, in 1942, at that time, OCBC headquarters was in Mumbai. And after the war, they moved back to Singapore. And a lot of people were not aware within Singapore. And also, another key point I want to highlight, Bank of Singapore, which is private banking for high net worth individuals, is part of OCBC. And as well as Great Eastern, which is an insurance company in Singapore, is also a subsidiary of OCBC. So this is what I do. So we create a roadmap and also a strategic direction for OCBC Bank and also other subsidiaries. And we also have a presence in China, Shanghai, and also in Hong Kong, Indonesia. So it's a global bank in a way. And if you look at emerging technologies within our group technology architecture, so we have we always, what you call like next gen platforms. So we always evaluate new technologies in the bank. And then once we do POC and pilot, then we scale it up to production. And then we hand over to BAU. And like that, we have bring microservices, cloud native architecture, and then also Kubernetes platform, OpenShift platform, and then the cloud as well. Then we also had AWS functions, hash functions, and distributed DB, a lot of things going on, but this is in the emerging tech. But now my focus from blockchain, we moved to quantum. And this started our journey way back in 2022. So imagine OCBC started looking at quantum technologies in 2022, and we were working with IHLs, Institute of Higher Learning. And Dr. Prasanna is here from NTU PQ Station, and we partner with them, one of our IHL. And then in 2030, we're also looking at LEO, so low Earth orbits. So we want to put our data center in satellite. So you might be asking why, because you have seen the recent war in Iran, which caused the data center of AWS to go down. So we're also looking at, let's keep our mission critical applications into the satellites. So let me play a short video that we have our research collaboration with institutes.
Well, it's very important now that quantum computers are happening, that universities and industry collaborate to try and find out how best to use them, to be able to use the extra performance, the extra accuracy of picking up frauds.
We're excited to collaborate with OCBC. So we're collaborating on financial derivative pricing, and the hope is that we get very deep insights into practical scenarios and practical real-life use cases.
Particularly in banking sector, trust and data are very important. We aim to make current banking infrastructure more resilient to ensure long-term security.
We're able to contribute back to the community on this journey where we can build new quantum capabilities to help push it to a new boundary in a field that's widely regarded as paradigm shift. We hope it help to position Singapore as one of the leaders in quantum technology in this part of the world.
So this is our OCBC collaboration with IHL, and Dr. Prasanna is supposed to be there in this video, but he was flying somewhere, I think in India back then. So let's look at the evolution of quantum computing, but I just want to set the context here, the stage. So we have like analog era, and then we have digital era. I quickly touch and go. The reason is our previous speaker, Mr. Girish, has covered a lot of basics there. So I quickly run through this. And then we have future, and we also have looked at supercomputers as well, but it didn't evolve the way we are looking at quantum computers. And then, if I do a deep dive, this another 10,000 feet. So we have, before first gen, we had Enigma, and this was being used during World War II. Then we have vacuum tubes. The computer is the size of this room, and high heat dissipation. And then we have transistors. That's where the real creativity, the things get evolved. Then after transistor, if you notice, we have integrated circuits, the IC design. And by the way, I forgot to mention earlier that I have a background in semiconductors. I work for Xilinx and National Semiconductors. So I was in San Jose for 2 years. So working for Xilinx in FPGA, Field Programmable Gate Array. So integrated circuits, that's where the real integration starts in semiconductor, and that's where after that you started seeing microprocessors. VLSI is very large scale integration, then we have ULSI, ultra large scale integration. And that's where our modern thing comes, all our GPU, CPU based. And then what's next? That's the question, right? And if you notice, we have moved from analog to digital, but after that we have not evolved something different. And in the next slide, I want to talk about Moore's law. I came from semiconductor background, and we always hear this from our CEO. As per Intel founder, Mr. Moore says that every 2 years, the number of transistors becomes double. If you look at current M5 chip on MacBook, M4 or M5 chip, the microprocessors have almost 55 billion transistors. And if you look at previously, it was 24 billion or something. And this is the quantum technology, and you will be surprised to know that quantum is not a new thing. It was started way back in 1900s. Our German scientist Max Planck, and very well-known Erwin Schrödinger's, the cat theorem, dead or alive. And then we have Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein. I will cover EPR paradox later. And also quantum field theory, very well-known mathematicians. We have like Paul Dirac and Wolfgang Pauli. And the real person who started the quantum computing naming was Richard Feynman. And you might be hearing the Richard Feynman technique, how to learn a new concept or new topic. And then you'll be seeing Peter Shor and Love Kumar Grover. Earlier speaker mentioned about these two algorithms going to break the backbone of your public key infrastructure or your public key cryptography. And 2000 onwards, you already know that we are seeing quantum computers in the real space. So what is quantum technologies? So a lot of people, when they say quantum, they always think about quantum computer, but it is more than that. So quantum tech, we have three tracks in total, but for finance, I only cover these two things, computing and quantum safe communication. Sensing is more for the industrial IoTs and all for all those. So computing, we have universal gate-based computers, and we also have annealers, well known as D-Wave. And then quantum safe communication, we have QKD and PQC. OCBC has done both the pilots and POC in both these use cases, and how we pivoted from QKD to PQC now. So I will be covering all those. So very touch and go. So here in classical, the best way to learn something is always see the differences, comparison, similarities and differences. So here we use bits 0 and 1. Same we use bits 0 and 1. The only difference is this one is either 1 or 0. There is superposition, can have both. Power increases linearly. For example, if I add 200 GB, it will give me only 200 GB in classical. Whereas in quantum world, if you add 200 GB, it will give you more than 600 GB, something exponential power. Not GB, but I'm talking in the power of compute. And here, quantum computer doesn't mean that the classical will be replaced. No. Your traditional Excel sheet, they're good at processing those. Quantum will not be good enough for that. Only for big optimization, quantum computers will be good. And these are the attributes of quantum mechanics. We have superposition, entanglement, and then interference. So superposition is nothing but classical, you have 0 and 1, whereas in quantum, you will have a superposition state. The qubit will determine same position of 0 and 1. It's like flipping a coin, the best way to visually to understand. The next one is entanglement. And this, I really like to talk about this. The reason is, just imagine someone, Prasanna or Mayank is in Singapore and I'm in Mumbai. I take a photon, I split this photon, I entangle together in such a way, the state of one photon will determine the state of the other photon. Let's say, for example, I have one photon, I shoot to two different locations, and if I go and measure in Singapore, the other side will become 0. Imagine it's a 3,000 kilometers, 4,000 kilometers away. How does it communicate? And that's why the way it communicates, no one knows. And that's where the EPR paradox comes in place. So let's do the other way around. If I go and measure in Mumbai and then Mumbai and then in Singapore, it will maintain the same state. And it is instantaneous. And that's where the quantum internet, you should watch YouTube on quantum internet. This will be the possibility of future. And imagine, I just talk about Singapore and Mumbai. What about shooting a photon all the way to Jupiter? It will maintain the same state. And there is no real communication. There is no channel that one photon is communicating with the other. It's just the way qubit handles the entanglement state. And that's why Einstein was very puzzled, because he called spooky action at a distance. The reason is his logical thinking is not working. And that's where the EPR paradox comes in place. EPR is nothing but Einstein, Podolsky, and Nathan Rose, because they were saying there should be some kind of, they were looking for logical thinking. And they were saying there were some local variables, that's how they get communicated with each other at that kind of astronomical distance. But it was Niels Bohr who told you should not be looking at, we should not be looking at applying classical common sense to the quantum. So quantum is basically like thinking, we have to change our thinking and our analogy. So another way of showing the difference, so from A, I'm exiting the red arrow to the green. In classical, it will find one path at a time. It has to go through this. Even if you do parallel processing, it will follow the same path, but multiple ways. Whereas in quantum, using superposition, entanglement, and interference, you can do a supercondense coding and you can do simultaneously. Your answer will be like this. So that's the beauty of quantum. So you might be asking, GPU doing the same thing, so what's so special about quantum? GPU, you need a lot of servers, GPU cards. Whereas in quantum, just use a little bit qubits, you can get exponential power. So, so let's talk about what kind of exponential power I'm talking. So these are the bits, classical and qubits, and I'll be talking about classical computer and quantum computer. So very quick one. So I have 2 states, it will give you 2. Whereas in quantum 4, nothing big, it's just double. So 3 states, it will give me around 8 states, not a big number. Then if I take 4 states, it will give you 16 states. You will still say nothing so special about quantum. But here that what changes. If you increase your qubit to 300, if you have 300 qubits, so a quantum computer with 300 qubits would have roughly the same number of states as total number of atoms in the known universe. If you take your calculator and if you put 2 to the power of 300, even your calculator will show you an error because it can't display that kind of number. So if I do this mathematical calculation, it is like trillion multiply itself by 7 to 8 times. It's a very big number. So how powerful are quantum computers? I just want to highlight that RSA 2048 can be broken within hours. And recently there was a Google paper mentioned as well. But same thing, if you take supercomputer, it might take billion over years. So I talk all rosy about quantum computers can do this, do that, and all looks good. But when it comes to CRQC kind of quantum computers, the biggest challenge is error correction. So what are the challenges we have? We have like cosmic rays, heat, particles, radiation, including the vibration. And then in order to generate one good logical qubit, you have to generate many physical noisy qubits. So error handling will be a very big challenge. I work with CQT NUS, Center Quantum Technology, National University of Singapore. And there are people, the scientists, they're only working, the thesis, the paper is only on error correction. Only error correction. And then we also have scalability issues because you have so many noisy qubits, you want to get one logical qubit. So the amount of error correction you need to do for your scalability, it's really complex. So now look at the Q-day part that I always highlight. Even Girish mentioned the Q-day is moving. So I always call the Q-day is a moving target, no more static. People used to say 2030s, 2040s. You remember the ChatGPT event happened? It's like no one has predicted. It was in 2022, suddenly happened. Same thing gonna happen Q-day. We don't know when it is. Even it happens and nobody will tell you. Countries, imagine a country who has quantum computer, they can break cryptography. They're not gonna declare this. So let's look at the NISQ era. NISQ era is nothing but noisy intermediate scale quantum. So in NISQ era, it's from 2070 to 2030s. But if you notice, why I call NISQ era, because our computers are error prone now. Error correction is critical. But we achieved quantum supremacy. This was in 2019 Google. And then we had Xanadu. It's a Canadian-based quantum computer. Remember, they completed 200 seconds, a kind of a quantum hardware simulation. But supercomputer will take 1,000 years. Same thing, Xanadu did some kind of photonic quantum computer. They completed one problem, mathematical problem, in 36 microseconds. A fastest classical supercomputer will take 6,000 over years, 9,000 over years. So what it shows that we prove physics, it works. So this is more like an academic milestone. And then we have commercial milestone where we are working at quantum advantage. This is the one possible. The Q-day can come anytime in near future. We don't know. And that's where our current cryptography will be broken using CRQC computers. So we can't wait that to happen. That's why OCBC started the journey way back. And then MAS also issued an advisory to all the CI of financial institutions to start working on CBOM and also for your QKD and PQC pilots. The moment we reach FQTC, full fault tolerant quantum computers, means all error correction is resolved. That day, the Q day, all your cryptography will be broken. So only way is we have to move from hybrid to PQC as well. So fully native PQC. So these are different types of quantum computers we have all in NISQ era, superconducting, trap ion, photonic, neutral atom quantum dots. Right now we are in NISQ era, but soon we're gonna, and if you look at the IonQ is the complete quantum computer. They have bought photonic and they have the laser based. And I have seen the roadmap that was of their quantum computers. Closer to 2029, they might have some like 200 to 300 qubits quantum computer. So let's look at quantum computer. It's if you look at the quantum computing it will be the two sides of the same coin. So you will have opportunities and you will have threats. So the bright side is new materials, drug discovery and all, very exponentially faster. Optimization problems can be solved. Then machine learning, AI plus quantum, exponentially can increase your compute power. And the dark side, this is where what happens using Peter Shor's algorithm and using Groover's algorithm to brute force your AES keys. This will be a big problem. This is going to break your cryptography. Basically what it says is the whole public key cryptography relies on this, the factorial problem and the product. So if you have two numbers and if you have a product, using Shor algorithm, you can determine the other number. So basically what I'm trying to say is if you have a public key, I can derive the private key. So I'm not sure how many of you from data center. The current state, if you look at our data center, is like this. So the castle I'm showing here is nothing but your data center. Rock solid, no one can hack, very hard to penetrate. The moment quantum computer comes, or quantum as a service, or state attack sponsor, this will be the state of your data center, or our data center. So how many of you, I'm not sure, have the password of like 16 characters? I hardly know anyone will be having 16 characters. But those who uses, okay. 16 characters is high entropy, so that is quantum safe. Whereas 10 characters below that, below 16, using Groover algorithm, you can break your password. And so here I want to talk about the communication, the public key cryptography infrastructure. This is the backbone of your internet security. Any sorts of communication you have. You take WhatsApp, email, or you are booking your tickets, flight tickets, or communicating, or even coming to FinSec event, all have to go through these three things. So the security objectives have to be satisfied to have these three things. I want to highlight authentication. Authentication is nothing but Alice and Bob. I'm actually really accessing Bob's OCBC online portal. So that's where authentication happens. Man in the middle attack, sometimes impersonation attacks happen. To avoid that, we have authentication. And that's where certificate authority comes into here, the root certificates and all. Second thing is confidentiality. The moment I'm messaging to Teja some kind of WhatsApp message, it goes through some channel. From my phone, after that, it goes through the channel that is not safe. So currently it's encrypted data. Anyone can do man in the middle attack. For him, it's a garbage message. So that's where harvest now, decrypt later comes. People are storing the data. They're just waiting for the CRQC computer to decrypt. Third thing is integrity. The message that I sent to Teja is really the same message or not. That's where the integrity comes in place. So why I'm showing this? Because that's where the moment Peter Shor algorithm comes, this is going to break your public key exchange. The moment it breaks public key exchange, your integrity and your confidentiality will be broken. So how it happens, let me quickly run through this, the basics. So we have hashing, MD5 and SHA-1. I know some of the banks still uses MD5. I have seen message digest 5 and for the checksum. These are vulnerable to Groovers. Forget Groover, they are even vulnerable to classical. The only way to mitigate is to increase the key size. So SHA-3 to SHA-2 to SHA-3. And do take note, SHA-2 was under government, US government. So that's why they make it open source SHA-3. So SHA-3 is a quantum, I will call it as quantum resistant. People interchangeably, they use quantum safe and quantum resistance. I use quantum resistant. The main reason is they are not meant, when they developed this SHA algorithm, they did not thought of quantum threat. So I just use quantum resistant. The only way to mitigate is increase the key size. Same thing for symmetric key. AES 128 is also not quantum safe and classical safe. And you will be surprised to know that 3 triple DES, lot of credit card uses EMV chip. That is not even classical safe. And it is also vulnerable to Gruber's algorithm using brute force. The only way is AES 256 and CHA 20. And then when it comes to authentication part, so this is integrity and confidentiality, all works hand in hand. If this is broken, this too is of no use. Okay, so what I'm saying is authentication part, we have RSA and we have elliptical curve Diffie element. One is the factorization I earlier mentioned, another one is the discrete logarithms. And it is vulnerable to Shor's algorithm. So there is no mitigation plan. You cannot increase the key size. The only way is either move to hardware, which is QKD based. Another one is post-quantum cryptography. So let's look at the quantum safe communication. On the left hand side, you see this is the current state. The hacking, the exploitation, when it happens, always at the top layer. The moment they go to the data center, it's always very difficult for a hacker. And the same thing when I do this, the moment quantum computer comes, the most trusted element is very easier to attack. And where cryptography is used, this is network OSI model, APST and DP we call, the 7 layers. So where is all cryptography being used? So I will talk 2 layers here, infrastructure layer and application layer. The bottom is your DWDM, MACsec and IPsec. IPsec is nothing but your VPN layer, all your data center. And that's where we have done QKD. We have tested QKD here, here and here. And you will be surprised to know that even the QKD boxes are ready, but the hardware vendor is not yet ready.
Perhaps can you tell our audience what is QKD and what is PQC?
Oh, it is there in the slides. I'll cover. And the application layer, this is where PQC will comes in place, because QKD keys can also be used in application side, but that is not feasible. Because you can't expect your mobile banking go and talk to QKD hardware to get the keys. That's very difficult. So only way is PQC is the right candidate for there. But PQC can touch all the layers. So here I want to highlight what is QKD and PQC. There will be a lot of details on that. QKD relies on principles of quantum mechanics. This is real quantum. Whereas PQC is mathematical based, lattice based, isogeny and different. Prasanna knows very well these things. He has done his PhD in that. This is based on mathematical, which is still classical, but hard mathematical problems. And QKD only protects point to point. There is a distance limitation. So you have to buy a QKD hardware. I will show you in the next slide how the hardware looks like QKD box. This QKD hardware will connect to another QKD using an optical fiber, dark fiber we call it. And then this is point to point, 150 km to 200 km limitation is there. And it is Alice Bob, you cannot change. So one is a sender, another one is a receiver. You cannot plug and play. It's very difficult. And these boxes are very, very expensive. Very expensive. This is DC to DC, but whereas PQC covered all types of application, and this only covers confidentiality, AES 256 key exchange, this happens using QKD, whereas it offers confidentiality, authentication, MLCAM and MLDSA, and then SLH DSA as well. The cost is very high here. I have the numbers, I'm just saying it's above 1 million something, just for the hardware. And this is cost effective, just a software based and easy to deploy and easy to mitigate. So this is the QKD box. So I'm using ID Quantic. So we have tested ID Quantic and Toshiba. These are the 2 vendors right now we have tested. And ID Quantic is very compact, and IonQ, the quantum computing vendor, they go and acquire this ID Quantic. So ID Quantic is Geneva based in Switzerland. So we work very closely with them. And this is how the QKD key exchange happens. It shoots the photons, the lights. And this is how your key gets derived at both the ends. A lot of people think the QKD key exchange, they thought like key is really sending. It is not. Using some mathematical or pre-template, the moment you have the pre-template classical communication happens, the key gets derived at both the ends. Same for RSA and also the ECDSA, the same thing. Keys really never get transmitted over the internet. So what is the beauty of QKD? The QKD is eavesdropping. The moment when you do a key exchange, if someone man in the middle attack, if you look at classical today, if man in the middle attack happens, there is no way to detect the key is compromised. But using QKD today, if I do a key exchange, someone hacks these photons and try to replicate, I will know. There is a man in the middle attack happen. It could be a man in the middle attack happen, or it could be an error qubit or something. And the following slide, I'll show you how the QKD key exchange happens. So moment eavesdropping happens, you will avoid that key. Or you can derive a key without using that qubit. So you remember I mentioned Alice and Bob, the QKD box. So this is QKD box, and that is the receiving side QKD box. Some basic things I want to highlight about BB84 protocol here. BB84 protocol being used for QKD. There is another one called E91 protocol that uses entanglement. And this is not entanglement based, it's just a photonic base. So this is a signal source, quantum signal source. I am sending a photon in this direction. So rectilinear, horizontal and diagonal. So when I send a qubit in this fashion, this is 0, this is 1, and this is 0, and this is 1. And then I have two templates, rectilinear and diagonal. Polarization filters we call them. Using that, I will save. So what happens, Alice gonna talk to Bob over the classical channel. Hey, this is what I'm gonna send you during this timestamp, and you should measure using this template. And that will be the key, will get derived. So the moment I send a key, I'll send one photon. So I supposed to use the diagonal, but he uses rectilinear. It could be the other way. Maybe some hacker took the photon. So you might be asking why you always say man in the middle attack is detectable, because have you ever heard photon, can you clone? We never heard cloning a light, like the light streams are coming, the photons. Can I ask you, do you have a machine to clone this? I even asked the same question. Is there a machine that in future we can develop to clone a light? Mathematically is impossible. So that's the beauty nature has given. In quantum safe communication, this is a blessing. The same thing, it is a problem in quantum computer because it is error correction prone to, because the state is gone. So what I do is I quickly run through this. I should be using different templates. So it could be two things. You see this cross sign, it could be a hacker or it could be a problematic photon, the qubit you send. But eventually you still can get the key because of your template that you have highlighted. And this is how the key gets derived at both the ends. It's not a key exchange, but they derive the keys. So next one, I want to talk about PQC. So remember, we cannot take the keys at the client side from QKD. That's where the beauty of PQC comes in. So MLDSA we can use for digital signature. This is to prove identity. Then we have ML key exchange, MLChem. So this is the key exchange happens, the same process, then you derive the same keys. A lot of people, they think when I say PQC means they think the new algorithm for confidentiality. That's not the case. It always AES-256. AES-256 is quantum safe. So eventually you just changing the mechanism, key exchange mechanism. You're not changing the underlying confidentiality key. And then same, you will be using the same key for encryption and decryption. So this is what NIST has defined the standards in 13th August 2024. Very nice timing. MA's advisory came in February at the same time. So we have used MLChem, MLDSA. And if you look at the application authentication, we see this authentication happens RSA. We're going to use MLDSA. This is for your certificate. Then confidentiality, you'll be using MLChem or hybrid AES-256. Sorry, MLChem. TLS handshake happens, you will have all these three layers. The integrity I highlighted earlier, right? TLS handshake, we will have key exchange, then we will get the MLDSA is for your certificate authority. Then key exchange, after key exchange, you will get your AES-256 key. The derived key is always classical key.
That cannot be brute force or something by the quantum.
Brute force, right? Not possible. Not possible right now. Not possible. AES-128, yes, we can brute force, but not 256. It's a very big number.
But in the future might be there.
Might be. Prasanna, you want to add on something to this?
Yeah, so just, maybe just a quick feedback. So the key exchange mechanism, the security of the key exchange mechanism is based on some hard problems in mathematics that are right now known to be hard even for quantum computers. But the same argument also applies for RSA and ECC that we are using right now as well. They also rely on hard problems on mathematics like prime factorization and discrete log. And even until now, we don't know whether there is a way to break RSA and ECC even using classical computers. We just go by confidence. Okay. People have tried to break it for a long time. There is sufficient amount of confidence that it cannot be broken, at least classically. And that's why we're going with this. And the same thought process also goes for quantum safe algorithms as well. These algorithms have been studied for about 20 years now. Like these algorithms, even though we have only started hearing about them maybe for the last 4 or 5 years, in the research community, these algorithms have been there since early 2000s, even early 1990s. So these algorithms are well studied. It's just that right now we are like organizations, enterprises are starting to implement these quantum safe algorithm in their systems, precisely because it's been standardized, it's been looked at by the cryptographic community for a very, very long time, and there is a lot of confidence that this will not be broken for the foreseeable future. But it's never a guarantee, and that's the reason why NIST is trying to standardize multiple cryptographic algorithms, not just rely on one single algorithm, but standardize as many cryptographic algorithms as possible. So even if there is a break on one algorithm, you have a fallback so that you can actually fall back to another quantum safe algorithm.
In the case of AI, this is possible in combination with AI. They also tried that.
In case of
AI logic, because AI would be computing is very fast. So if they try to brute force these keys, by usage of AI.
Prasanna, his question to move to the AES 256, using brute force possible right now, not possible.
Yeah, AES key cannot be brute force, and like basically you're looking at higher compute power to be able to carry out any brute force attacks or even mathematical attacks on these quantum on these algorithms. But technically, as of today, even if you assemble an army of supercomputers or even an army of, let's say, quantum computers, it's right now not possible. No matter what technique you use, AI or non-AI based, it's not possible. Yeah. So if you want to brute force or search through a database or brute force a certain value, you have to use something called as a Grover's algorithm that basically reduces the complexity, the search complexity by half. Which means that, for example, not by half, but basically, square root. So essentially, if you have a 128-bit key, if you need 2 power 128 combinations are there, but then if you're using a Grover's algorithm, the search complexity reduces to 2 power 64 basically. So it's not like you'll immediately get the key, the search complexity basically reduces, I would say, exponentially it reduces.
So simplest thing is that if you double the key size, if you are using AES 128, you have to move to AES 256. If you are using AES 256, you are reasonably secure against quantum computing based attacks. But I think some entities are moving towards AES 512, but that is a lot of change.
Yeah. So this is what we have done in MLChem, and I think I covered this. So let's look at the MAS QKD sandbox. This will be the important topic for discussion today. MAS is nothing but I think equivalent to CB. Is it correct? MS is Monetary Authority of Singapore. It's a government regulatory body for financial institutions and for insurance. And this is a QKD sandbox, quantum key distribution sandbox. And this is what testing quantum safe communications with NQSN plus network. So NQSN plus network is nothing but National Quantum Safe Network Plus. This is by government IMDA. It's my own ex-boss is the one who started this.
So this is one of the most consequential slides that you will see today. Singapore has done this. India probably is planning to do this. So I will invite you to please spend some attention on this. Actually, this looks very simple, but even a lot of geopolitics come into play on this slide. So I'll let Sripal continue, but this is one of the most consequential slides that you see today.
So in order to show these slides, initially I have removed because I have to take approval from governing bodies from MAS. Finally, we have spoken with a couple of guys. We managed to, and the main reason for that is because we have co-published white paper with all the other banks in white paper, and we have used a similar concept in that. So this is a hub and spoke model. Earlier we spoke with Nilesh on this as well, that he talked about. It's the same thing. So IMDA has given two telcos, SPTEL and Singtel. So they have developed QKD as a service with two vendors. The main reason is every bank, they cannot implement different vendors, and also government has taken this step forward and they created a quantum key distribution as a service. It's a provider of keys. So what happens, this is something like a cloud provider of keys for you, and OCBC Bank, HSBC, UOB, and DBS. Earlier, JP Morgan was also part of this project, but they, because of some NDA agreements, then they have to, they didn't join, they did not participate. And all these 4 banks, we did this. So we connected our our connectivity was in data center, and our data center is connected to their QKD box. Then you can connect to your regulatory bodies and with other banks, hub and spoke model, very typical. And now I'll be talking about the QKD setup flow, what we exactly tested and what kind of, which layer we have tested this. So F5 sandbox is nothing but financial institutions. Earlier I mentioned OCBC, HSBC, DBS, and UOB. And then HSBC is the only international bank, the rest is all local bank. And then we have MAS, the regulatory sandbox. And then we use SPTEL network, National Quantum Safe Network Plus. And we have installed QKD box in our data center, another QKD box in MAS, and then the service provider and our key exchange. Remember earlier I mentioned the BB84 protocol, the key exchange happens, the same thing it happens through this. And then our traditional file exchange. So what exactly we have tested is we have developed a wrapper application, and we have tested using it on our servers, and we were using ETSI 014. ETSI is European Telecommunication Standards Institute. They have developed this protocol for your REST API, how to query a key from a QKD box. So now what I'm going to show you the file transfer mechanism, and this is on the encryption sender side. For example, from the F5 side, I want to send a file to CB or to MAS. What I'm going to do is I will take the file, I will query the key using ETSI 14, I'll get the QKD key. This QKD key is nothing but AES 256. This key, what I'm going to do is I will encrypt the file, and I will not be sending the key, I'll be sending the ID of the key. ID of the key. The moment I will send this file over the internet, on the other receiving side at MAS or maybe at CB, she will start the decryption process. The first thing she will do is take the key ID, she will query the QKD box. The same AES 256 key, she will be getting the same key, and she will start the decryption process. And vice versa, you can do the same thing. You want to send the file from MAS to the receiving, to the sender side to banks or financial institutions, you will follow the same process. So it's through and through. So this was the whole process. We have consumed the QKD keys at application layer. Remember, QKD keys are meant for the hardware layer, but practically it's possible. So even we tested IPsec layer, everything. And following, I will talk about when we did this testing, we did a lot of testing. Means you cannot simply want to test the good part of the QKD, you want to test all the backward side. Basically, what happens if I unplug the cable, what happened, I will do the key exhaustion, all additional tests. You have operational focus test, you have security focus test, and then redundancy test, like removing the fiber cables or someone purposely drop the cable from there or power off. So all sorts of tests we done, and it's really scalable because you cannot wait for the QKD key exchange happen because it's bombarding billions of photons per second. So both will have the pool of keys. And then we also not limited, we did a lot of advanced file transfer cases because we want to see whether we can use QKD plus PQC hybrid and all. We even took to OTP file transfer, then we used digital signing, and that was using MLDSA. So this is the one. And I will talk more of the use of QKD with PQC to establish the VPN tunnel. This is the hybrid PQC, means using QKD plus PQC together. So let's talk about that. So we have two devices, and we were using WireGuard VPN. And what we have done is we have SPTEL network, the same QKD boxes, and using the same ETSI interface, we query the QKD key. And then we have Rosenpass. It's an open source post-quantum key exchange process. And now what we did is we use HKDF derivative key function, hash base, and we got the pre-shared key. This is called PSK key. And this PSK key will be consumed by the WireGuard VPN on the other side. What I'm trying to say is it's possible to have hybrid key exchange, QKD plus PQC. Practically, this is not possible in production. This is to show use case that something can be doable, hybrid keys. Now, so here, the end of all the QKD. Now, the PQC part we have done with Prasanna and his team. I want to see the PQC feasibility study. And do take note, OCBC was very much interested to do the QKD, but we paused for a while because now we are thinking like PQC is the first to go, easier to implement. Then later we will come back and look into, because QKD hardware is evolving. A lot of changes keep coming. So we work with different vendors, ID Quantic and Toshiba and then Square Root 8. So this is a very typical banking architecture, 3-tier architecture. I have removed all the tech stack, what's not to be shown here, but this is the thing. And if you look at the left side, CDN and load balancer, we call this external traffic, the traffic coming from outside. Everything after load balancer is, everything is internal. Nothing is meant for public, means it's hardened. Okay, so external traffic is not PQC safe, quantum threat is real. Even the internal traffic is also, the threat is equally important. So in 2024, we did with PQ Station. The first use case was to make sure our web server and API gateway should be PQC ready. So you might be asking, why not this? Because this is very important, critical. I strongly agree with you, because we were knocking the doors of CDN and load balancers since 2023. And their roadmap was not even there for PQC. So even today also, the load balancer and CDN, they are not ready. Only Cloudflare has CDN, PQC based, not other vendors. Even we have Thales also here, right? Even we are knocking their doors also. But we want to see to test this PQC, because we can't wait for 2030. We have to start from somewhere. So we have done our web server and API gateway. And yeah, go ahead. External. But traffic after that, it comes internal.
Internal starts from your web server.
Web server, yeah. So this all exposed to external, yes. After that is internal. So yeah, so what we have done is we want to make sure that PQC is compatible and very minimal changes required for our application. This is to test. So everything. So we have tested on web server and API gateway, and we also noticed that we can do configuration. Means first is our requirement, the success criteria is if PQC handshake happens, imagine the web server is not compatible, what will happen? It will fall back to classical. That is working. Second thing is what we wanted. Tomorrow in future, quantum threat is real and I don't want to use classical. Can I dictate him to upgrade his browser? That is also tested, and we did this. And it is all configuration changes done. And then we did the performance bench testing as well. So let me quickly show you. So this is what we use, MLCAM and also the hybrid PQC. So we use web server and API gateway, and the behind the application we use on the microservices was blockchain application. So what we have done, what we enabled, so we enable PQC in web server and API gateway, and we also done the MLCAM and also the hybrid key. Then we tested the quantum safe key exchange, and also when it comes to performance overhead, there is a following slide I'll show you. And then we also noticed that PQC is really compatible. Same for QKD, you don't have to do major changes. It's only thing all the vendors has to evolve together. Because we have a lot of DWDM vendors, Huawei, Cisco and all, they are not ready. Cisco has another issue related to, we have to use SKIP protocol. They are not using ETSI standards. So globally, vendors also should evolve together with to implement PQC. So this is the performance bench testing. So if you look at the left side, there is a small, lower is the better. So the blue is classical, the orange is PQC based. So there is a little overhead here, and then time for connect also a little bit. When the time to first byte was almost negligible. So bottom line is we did only this in very sandbox environment, this testing. I think earlier there was a question from like how was the performance side. There was a bit of overhead, but it's very negligible for now. But we have to do further testing. Anything, Prasanna, you want to add on to this?
Yeah, maybe I'll just add one point that one common misconception is that PQC is used throughout the communication session. But to be honest, PQC algorithms or even classical algorithms are only used during the connection establishment. Only when the client is initiating a connection with the server, only that time PQC is used, even RSA or ECC for that matter. So you exchange certificates, you perform digital signatures, you verify those signatures, you do a key exchange. All of those processes are happening at the beginning, and after that both sides trust each other and they have a unique key. They will then use that key to encrypt and decrypt using AES, like what we do right now, and it's super fast. So PQC is only used at the beginning of the session, So we are mainly trying to understand that, let's say if you have 500, 1,000, 10,000 concurrent connections to a web server, is it able to handle? And we basically did a lot of load testing in terms of understanding what is the performance impact while you're having a lot of concurrent connections to your web servers, to your API gateways. And as you can see from the figures, yes, there is a certain impact in terms of, let's say, time to connect, time to getting the first byte and so on. But from a user standpoint, it's actually not very high. As Sripal sir mentioned, a lot of like Cloudflare CDN already uses MLChem and hybrid MLChem. In fact, a lot of servers of Google, your email servers, they all started to use MLChem, like hybrid MLChem. And from a user standpoint, our browsers are supporting them, and we've not been facing any significant performance issues. But when it comes to using signatures, so when you're having quantum safe certificates like MLDSA certificates or SLS-DSA certificates, there is a potential impact in performance, but we still don't have like a large scale study that's been done on what will be the actual impact, and that's why organizations or enterprises are moving slightly slower when it comes to implementing quantum security in certificates. And also, to be honest, signatures are not, like forgery based attacks are only more relevant when you have actual quantum computers today. So forgery attacks are not very relevant today because you actually don't have large scale quantum computers, but HNDL is more important, harvest now decrypt later. Protecting the confidentiality of data is more important, and that's why organizations are prioritizing use of quantum safe key exchange mechanisms. So that's why even in our pilot, we were basically focusing on implementing MLChem, which is the quantum safe key exchange mechanism, which is suitable for confidentiality. And we tested it on the internal service gateways, which are your
web
servers and your API gateways. And those were software based. These are software applications that are running on your VMs. And this was easy to modify for us. So we started with that. And understood what's the real performance impact. But from the figures, we were able to seamlessly sort of enable PQC in them. And then from like when we did testing from a browser, when we tried to run automated scripts to hit to enable multiple connections hitting the web servers, we didn't face significant performance impact. But when using signatures, that's a different story altogether. That's something that needs to be studied. And as part of follow-up projects, we'll definitely be doing that. Yeah.
Thanks, Prasanna.
Can you elaborate on what do you mean by key exhaustion?
When you're generating the keys at one point of time, at some point of time, when you're having the centralized approach, there are chances that you will exhaust the number of keys that you'll be generating at any point of time.
No. The entropy is really, really high, and definitely that's not an issue at all. Because there is, like, for example, the size of the ciphertext, the size of the public key security are all in a range of few kilobytes. Okay. And it's a lot of entropy that you're dealing with. So there's no point where you're, maybe Girish.
So it depends on HSM capability, right? Okay. So what is the capability of HSM? How many keys you can generate? How many certificates you can store in that HSM? Will have a limit on the keys and the certificates you can generate.
Okay, so meaning you're in terms of the ability to store the keys, yeah? Yeah. So maybe just to give you an example, so you have RSA keys which are, let's say, 2 kilobytes, 2048 bits, 4096 bits, so on, and you have ECC keys which are maybe just 32 bytes, like very, very small. But if you look at keys for MLChem, they are also in the range of a few kilobytes, like around 1.83 kilobytes and thereabouts. And the same also applies for MLDSA as well. So the size increases when you compare ECC to an quantum safe. It's 2 orders of magnitude, but it's still very, very small. And we have memory is not a typical issue that we have.
What about compute?
Yeah.
Memory is okay, but what about compute?
Yeah. So there are that's actually well understood. A lot of studies where people have understood the compute capacity for running PQ quantum safe algorithms versus classical. The two main standards, MLChem and MLDSA, from a performance standpoint, are very comparable with your ECC and RSA today. And they have been tested on different platforms. All your GPUs, there are studies on GPUs, there's study on like Intel CPUs, AMD CPUs. There's studies on ARM Cortex like microcontrollers. So when you compare general performance of MLChem and MLDSA against ECC and RSA, definitely it's very, very comparable. It's definitely, there is some overhead, but as you can see from the figures and so on, it's not at all significant. Maybe Girish would like to add.
It is better than RSA, not as good as ECC, simple. So significantly better than RSA, especially ML series, MLChem and MLDSA. Better performance, only on the computational performance, right? But not the same case with other algorithms. There are more algorithms, Todo, classic nickel and all that, but not as good as ECC. If that's a ready data is there.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of confidence in order to turn on support for MLChem. MLDSA is another story, but in terms of key exchange, that's why all your leading cloud service providers, all your CDNs, they've already started to implement MLChem to certain capacity. MLDSA is another topic where they're trying to basically understand if I have like a large certificates. Right now it's basically just a few hundred bytes. If I have a few kilobytes of certs, then what is the actual impact going to be? That's something that organizations are continuing to study, because there's also this concept of TLS middle boxes as well. Do we have compatibility for PQC algorithms with those middle boxes? There's a few issues there, but yeah, there is continuous like deployment experience, POC experience that a lot of enterprises are trying out right now.
Thanks, Prasanna.
In the previous slide,
this one?
Yeah, this one. You told that CDN and the load balancer doesn't support the PQC as of now.
You're asking whether they have a support for PQC or they have, but their roadmap is keep extending. Okay. And their availability is called general availability and beta version something.
Okay,
and then
only is supported.
Yeah, and that is supported only in UAT, not meant for production.
Okay, then you have enabled this on the web server and the API gateway.
Yes.
So, but it has to originate at the client side. So
totally agree with you. That's why earlier I mentioned, right, having this two is not enough. We have to have from end to end. The reason is we already, see, I have to start somewhere. The first thing we knock the doors is CDN. So myself and Prasanna, we went together to the CDN. We want to test this out. But they're saying it's not ready. So we had a meeting with their US counterpart and all with their engineering team. But they're saying we are not able to release. Now they release something, but they're still saying that you should test it out in your UAT environment first. Not meant for production. The only vendor that has the CDN, which is Cloudflare. But we don't have Cloudflare. And you will be surprised to know that there is Active SG. It's a kind of a, I'm not sure what is the equivalent in India, Active SG. It's kind of a government encourages people, youth to go to gym and all. They have this app, and that is a PQC ready app. And that's how we came to know that they are using Cloudflare. And their mobile application is PQC based application. I was very surprised.
So that's where I think what point Girish mentioned earlier becomes very relevant, where you need to have a plan so you can start engaging with the vendors early. Because a lot of the times, the crypto, for example, if you're looking at an API gateway, right? Even if like the vendor itself is not ready, let's say you are relying on a Spring Cloud API gateway or a Kong API gateway and so on. In some cases, what's possible is that you can add a provider, a PQC provider, and plug it into your API gateway, and then you can start testing it out. You don't have to necessarily rely on the vendor. But in case of your load balancer, for example, if you have F5, one of the leading vendors, they have hardware load balancers. These are hardware servers that just come and install in your data centers, right? There you don't have the ability to change.
Suppose we have enabled this at our web server, API gateway everywhere, but the other components, if they are not supporting, then my PQC communication will not be established unless all the components they are supporting.
So yeah, maybe. So how you have to look at it is that the interaction between your browser and CDN is classical. CDN. So there are multiple hops. So browser to CDN is classical. CDN to load balancer classical. Load balancer web servers are classical. The only class quantum safe is only the interaction between the server and the API gateway. So you need to look at the data in transit over multiple hops and what is the security of each of those hops looking like. And that's where risk analysis comes in. If it's external traffic with CDN to your DMZ, then DMZ to your internal zone. So you have to sort of adopt a prioritized approach when you think about PQC.
Yes.
One question. So, getting this last person, let's say let's say organization tries to implement PQC at the external side of thing, public domain, during the transmission. So let's say I have a proxy which is dependent on a vendor, let's say Ubuntu. But Ubuntu doesn't provide that OpenSSL version which is PQC compatible. So how to deal with this trade-off? Like, for example, with respect to the operational management or patch management of that proxy, in which I have a vendor dependency which is not providing me that level of OpenSSL. How to deal with this trade-off?
Sure. There is one solution we have. Do you think we can talk about the CSA use case here, or we cannot? Maybe I'll add on to that.
Yeah.
So, similar problem in bank, we have the same problem. The reason is, CDN, we don't have one vendor, we have 3-4 vendors. And we are surprised, the application we wanted to test out for PQC, that vendor doesn't even have a PQC roadmap. And we hit the same bottleneck what you just highlighted. It was a good question. We have another solution. You remember earlier I showed you the QKD box, and then we have PQ station solution. You are using QSL this thing. So what we are doing is, let this communication happen the way it is. What it does, the mobile application or the browser will connect to the QKD layer. It will consume the keys. And then this traffic, irregardless whether PQC or QKD doesn't matter, because I'm already doing PQC here. All the while at my microservice, it will be PQC.
So basically you can think of it as adding an additional layer on top. If you're really trying to add an additional layer of protection, you can add some sort of a proxy solution on top. But again, you're adding more cryptographic sprawl, more cryptographic depth. It's not a long-term solution, but if you're in a situation where your vendor is still not ready to support you with PQC upgrades, and but you have to migrate to protect your business interests, then you have to look at adding an additional layer of security. For example, you can implement some sort of a proxy in, let's say you're looking at a mobile app use case where you want to secure all the data going from your mobile apps to your infra, right? So you can add a quantum safe proxy inside your mobile app. So whatever, before the app actually gives it to the TLS layer, you can add an additional layer of encryption on top before giving it to TLS. And then you can have a similar proxy in your own infrastructure, which can then remove that additional layer of security and then sort of process it as it is. So that's a possible solution, and in fact, we are, as Sripal mentioned, we are looking at that use case where we are not reliant on the mobile app, vendors for mobile apps, vendors for CDNs for quantum security. Can we add an additional layer of encryption inside that's PQC based? And I will remove that additional layer in my own infrastructure. So this will add one layer on top. But again, there will be performance issues. There will be some complexities in terms of performance that will add on top, and that needs to be studied. You have to go through POCs. You have to
so
understand what
Prasanna, this is the solution. So what I'm saying, this is not confidential because for Prasanna maybe it's confidential. I'm not sure. So this is the solution I'm talking. The same problem that you highlighted, our C-level was talking to me the same problem. I know you have internal, you are doing PQC ready. What about your externals? We told him that we are knocking the doors. I'm not sure, Teja, whether CB has sent out any questionnaire to all the financial institutions to fill up the PQC readiness. I'm not sure about that.
No, not yet.
Yeah. So we already received questions from our regulatory body, and to fill in all the questions from Hong Kong as well, then Singapore, and then also Malaysia and Indonesia also coming up soon.
So SEBI has done something called CSRF, Cyber Security Reference Framework, wherein they mention that you have to have a C-bomb in place, but I don't think it's enforced. I don't think anyone has started, at least in India. FYI, I think some of you would know it. RBI just a couple of days before has set up a committee wherein essentially this will probably become sort of like a binding mandate in coming months, but nothing yet in India.
Okay. So this is the solution, just Prasanna, myself talking. So we will be using PQ station adapter, and then we're going to use QKD network, and we're going to use this ID Quantic hardware, this KMS kind of solution they have. And we'll be consuming this key. So I really don't care so many hops. The reason why I'm worried, the hops that I actually streamline these hops. Actually, internal banking application has a lot of web servers and API gateways in between. And then MTLS with other services, because payment application is highly complicated application.
So here what we're doing is instead of you doing like an inline TLS using in your own data path. We are looking at an alternate data path where you can basically pull in keys and then use that key to add an additional layer of encryption on top. So there is one proposal that where QKD comes in, but even without, so this layer that you see here is basically a QKD layer. So what Sripal mentioned earlier is you have two QKD boxes that are sending keys, right? Using that keys to encrypt. Similar situation where you have a QKD layer and this key is basically being sent to the mobile app. The key is then used to encrypt the data before going to TLS. So you don't care what PQC or classical is used on the CDN or on the load balancers and so on.
So I'm not bypassing that flow.
You're not bypassing, you're adding. You're adding to
additional
that
layer
basically. And even this will work even without QKD as well. You can forget this exists, right? You can forget this exists. You can still add some sort of a solution like here that will do a PQC based exchange directly with another entity here. So you are still using TLS, but you're basically adding an additional layer of encryption on top. If you're really keen on, yeah.
But if you're saying that you're still using a WAF, wouldn't the SSL offloading be required at a WAF layer for it to understand the traffic? Because a WAF will function only then, right?
Yeah, that was also something we discussed. This is where we can specifically look at masking or encrypting very specific data, not the entire HTTP request and response where it's completely unintelligible, but let's say specific information like your PII data and so on. You can encrypt it selectively because the WAF doesn't have to go through like specific. It will just need to understand what sort of a request response it is. So you can look at it. That's something that we are looking at. Yeah.
See, just adding to him.
We don't have a regulation, but in terms of compliance, wouldn't that be an issue? In terms of compliance, wouldn't that be an issue? We are just partially, as you said, we can partially selectively encrypt.
So in
terms of compliance, wouldn't I mean, we do not have as of now, but in terms of compliance, wouldn't that be an issue?
Yeah, so here the situation is that I want PQC support because I feel that I need to migrate right now, but my vendors are not supporting. So what's the minimum I can do to ensure that my service is still up and running? Is you're not saying that this is going to be your only source of PQC. It's an add-on solution that's going to protect at least your customers' data that you think is important for your business. You're protecting it that. But you still have to engage with these vendors to do that full-fledged migration going forward. But if you are at risk right now, let's say you do detailed risk analysis and you have to migrate, then you can start adopting these sort of solutions.
See, this is our backup solution. Tomorrow Q day happens.
Yeah.
I can't, vendors are not ready. I quickly wrap it up this solution. So that's why we are working. We are working on all of those.
Yeah, I can clarify that. So again, one point that I'd like to highlight is that PQC itself is only during connection establishment. So for example, let's say your mobile app is establishing a communication session with your infra. Only at that point PQC is used. After that, it's basically just classical. It's basically that you're having an additional AES key that you're encrypting with, and AES is super fast. AES is extremely fast. It's very transparent in a way. So PQC is only.
You can't change that actually technically. Banking application is hard to change. I have to have the same flow.
You. So even if it, let's say, handled by Cloudflare, right? Again, like from Cloudflare, you probably will hit a WAF. You have to engage with your WAF, or maybe Cloudflare will then go to another load balancer or another web server because there'll be multiple data paths, right? So you still have to. So if your CDN is enabling PQC, so only this path is safe. But from the CDN back to your actual infrastructure, Probably it's being, probably the data goes to a WAF or the data goes to another load balancer from another vendor and so on, because we have seen such situations. That's where it gets complicated. And again, here the situation is I'm trying to make it PQC safe until it hits my environment. Is there a way to do that? This is one way, but there might be other ways.
This solution is already live, I think.
Oh, sorry, yeah, please.
Yeah, this solution is already live, which we are talking about. We can name the solution, right? Or the brands that has live. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is live, working in a production in India itself.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Okay, this is live with iMobile, ICICI Bank,
Achha.
and the vendor is 42 Labs.
Achha. The gentleman sitting right in front of you. Yes.
So we have, is it?
The theory, this is live in production. And someone said that it is compliance ready. Bank like ICICI or maybe other banks, they are doing a proactive work, right? They are getting ready to PQC attackers, which will happen, as you said, it can happen in 30 or before that. So they are ready and they are adding the layer above the classical.
Yeah, definitely. And
so I just wanted to clarify one thing, okay? I think Shripad and Prasanna has done the fantastic job. So what I think one thing that we are missing still, because here they are explained it very nicely. The one thing that we have missed is basically the difference between the key exchange and the actual encryption. Okay, there are two different things. When we say quantum safe encryption, that primarily means two things. The key exchange is separate. How do you transfer the key to Alice and Bob? And how do you then do the encryption using that key? Right? So what Shripad is saying that there is no change into the AES encryption, which is a standard, which is your compliance, which is a regulation. It is the various ways and means to transfer the keys between the Alice and Bob. I know that there would be a lot of questions related to where do I offload my traffic, how do I encrypt my payload, right? If let's say TLS is already there, how can I insert that inside? What will be the performance overhead? What Shripad is trying to say is, see, if tomorrow there is a Q day, what do you have as on date today? Without even having to, so what the regulator is going to say, without having to worry about the infrastructure, you have to implement it today, right? And that's the alternative solution.
Yeah.
So while this gentleman asked that can we do without the encryption, I don't know if these mics are working. I mean, even the other people talk, we are not able to hear. Hardly. So anyway, so in the previous slide where you said that while your encryption is what you say is the legacy encryption that we talked about, and at a certain layer in the inside where you said that this is a PQC layer encryption. So how does that work when we say that only one leg of my traffic is PQC encrypted while the rest is traditionally encrypted? Will that pose any kind of challenges security wise?
So here, basically before you hit the app server, there are a bunch of modern service gateways in between. When I say modern service gateways, you have your CDN, load balancer, WAF, web server, API, there will be many more. So what typically happens is the security handshake that you're doing is not directly from your browser to the application server. There are a lot of gateways in between. So you have multiple TLS hops that happen. And that's why when we talk about quantum security or holistic quantum security, we need to ensure that there is PQC supported on all the gateways in between. And that's why you can say that your end-to-end path is actually quantum safe. So some of it is external traffic over external public links, but some of it is internal. Some of it is internal traffic. So when we implement PQC between web server and API gateway, only the link between these two can be quantum safe. Meaning it's supporting quantum safe algorithms. Yeah, but let's say if there is an attacker that's basically probing into this channel, then this is vulnerable to quantum attack. Doesn't matter if you implement PQC here, doesn't matter. So this is still a point of failure for you or point of vulnerability for you. I hope that answered the question. I mean, Yeah, I hope I understood the question.
It does. No, I understood what you're saying now. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
So every TLS handshake, we have to move to PQC.
Yeah. So it's just the risk level is high where you're looking at an external attacker with access to public internet links. You might also have like data center like dedicated leased lines. There might also be internal traffic. So it's about how much risk you actually, what is the risk score you associate with these different data links, because it's the same data, but it's flowing through different channels.
No, so I was getting an impression earlier while here saying that my last leg is encrypted through PKC and my whole traffic, whatever is there, is kind of safe because of that, or my last mile transition is safe, so everything is safe. But just now it is clear that this is not safe unless and until every leg is kind of
I'd like to maybe add a small clarification is we are actually trying to add that last mile there. For example, when we are adding that additional proxy, maybe you can go to the. So when we are adding the additional proxy, this is doing a direct TLS handshake with this on top, over on top of whatever TLS you're going to use here. So this is actually end-to-end. So even if this is not PQC safe, whatever data that you're encrypting with the keys you derive from this handshake, it's still quantum safe end-to-end.
So that's an additional layer on the traditional
exactly.
TLS there.
Exactly.
Okay, fine.
Now whether do we have the appetite to actually accept this sort of solution from a performance standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, that's something that has to be seen.
Sir,
okay,
but
fine, thank you.
But for that, whether that hardware which is in between, whether it has to support for PQC?
Yeah, essentially, no, it doesn't need to have support for PQC. What it basically sees is additional encrypted traffic that's garbled messages. So it doesn't really process them. So it's just additional data that's being added.
Some appliance in between to offload the traffic, right, or to terminate that.
No, it can pass through the same as it is, and we have tested this.
So
it can pass through the same
your
gateways.
mobile app SDK will have that, and then the
microservice in the back end.
Yeah, and the same data passes through the exact same path, like the same flow is maintained basically, and there's no offloading.
And with regards to WAF, we have discussed with our OEM, and they told that they are already compatible with PQC offloading.
Yeah.
So in that case, then we can offload that, and we can do the WAF inspection as well, and we can back end I can have the classic.
Yes. That's
those vendors who are ready, fine. But the problem is our tech stack is all WAF vendors are there, and then not everybody is ready. And the same problem with the CDN.
It also has to be seen. The WAF does TLS handshake with which entity? If it does not, let's say if the WAF only does a TLS handshake with this, let's say CDN, and if the CDN is not enabled with PQC, I'm saying the back-end connections of the CDN, if it's not enabled with PQC, then doesn't matter if the WAF is supporting PQC. It will still be classical.
See, for example, let's say the client is communicating directly to my WAF, and WAF is having connection to my back-end server.
Yeah, then it's not an issue.
Okay. Any more questions? Yeah.
As you said that the entire row should be PQC compliant.
Yeah, for this.
Yes, in the previous slide actually, that you said that entire flow should be PQC compliant, irrespective if it is public leg or the private part of things.
Yes.
So this proxy or this additional layer solves my public part of public transmission.
It solves both.
It solves both, huh?
Yeah.
So if, as an entity, if I want to start if I want to start thinking towards securing internal side of things to PQC risk, what should be the starting point of it from web server onwards?
This TLS handshake here. Load balancer to your web server. If you do this, after this all will be your PQC. You should do every TLS handshake, you have to move to PQC.
And not just this, even like a service to service as well. For example, you'll have multiple back offices. So each back office actually interacts with each other. You have your core banking systems, your payment engines, and so on. They all use MTLS, mutual TLS for communication. And it depends on what tech stack they're using to communicate.
So MTLS is the one we also looking at, because a lot of our applications connect to MAS or like a CB kind of entity. Then those, if MAS is not ready, then our applications, even we migrate, will not be a PQC ready. So it has to work hand in hand. That's why we even work with Nets. Nets equivalent is UPI, right here?
NPCI and UPI.
Yeah, so NPC and UPI. So we also working with them.
Sure, thanks. So it's about prioritization. You don't have to do it entire quantum safe, we can say that for me external is most important, so I will focus on that. Internal I'll do later, or you can, if you want to start testing PQC, you can start with internal and then you can move. So again, like different schools of thought. There's no one right way or wrong way.
Sure, thanks.
Normally internal between the application and database, they communicate also on the TLS.
Yes, yes.
So in that case, my server or application has to be also with
PQC.
OS also that, because it is the registry setting of TLS.
Sorry.
When you are enabling the TLS at the server level, it is a registry setting. So it is a OS has to be compliant.
Not necessarily. So what happens is sometimes applications are shipped in with their own TLS libraries. So they don't rely on, let's say, the OS for TLS.
For example, if my application server, Windows server is communicating database on the TLS, there is internal traffic.
Yeah.
Then in that case, OS also has to be.
Yeah, Prasanna, I will add on to this. I agree, because I have, even internally, I have done with our team. Some applications goes through OS. Totally agree. Those has to migrate. So these are the ones. That's why CBOM comes in place for us, because those applications we don't know and how to migrate those applications. So yes, OS has to migrate the underlying, maybe OpenSSL or whichever will come in between there.
So what happens there is sometimes there are two scenarios. One is the applications have the TLS library shipped in with them. So everything, it's like self-sufficient. It doesn't need anything else. Or in some cases what happens is the applications rely on the cryptographic libraries in your system. So OpenSSL dynamic libraries that are sitting somewhere. And that's when you need to also ensure that the OpenSSL distribution that you have installed on your servers are also up to date. So that's where CBOM comes in.
Yes. So we also working with Microsoft guys on this. Yes.
Yeah, we communicate with the vendors.
We are communicating.
Yes, Microsoft has a defined roadmap, but obviously for different products, it's different. For the cloud, they have a certain roadmap, like similarly for AWS. But every major vendor is actively working on PQC roadmaps for their products.
So now Google and Cloudflare are advocating for 2029 as a roadmap, right?
Yeah.
For everything.
So basically, Google.
Azure cloud also, there is internal traffic moves on the TLS.
Yeah.
In Azure cloud, any cloud in a cloud environment, internal traffic moves on the TLS. So it might be the Azure services or Azure OS or Azure VMs. So from the Azure point of view, as you said, are you working with them?
We are not directly working with Azure. Like for example, the banks, like the end organizations, like end user organizations are the ones that are interacting with vendors. But there, as Girish mentioned, there's a shared responsibility. The vendors might claim I have PQC support, but can you turn on PQC support in your systems with confidence, ensuring that your system your services don't go down? So like they will have PQC support, but to be able to turn it on, and I would like to maybe paraphrase this like an operationalize. So can you operationalize PQC in your environment, and do you know how to do that? That's even though vendors claim I have PQC support and so on, there's a lot of dependencies between systems that needs to be taken into account. So having a plan to operationalize PQC even after your vendor says I have PQC support also is a separate thing that needs to be.
Now this Chrome and Edge, everything is supporting hybrid for now, right?
Hybrid. Yeah.
So any timelines around when they will start supporting this full PQC? Any
by 2030 something we are. Yeah.
No, because we had come across a couple of solutions where they asked for a converting kind of a client sitting in the end user PC to convert the traffic to full PQC
native
traffic,
PQC.
native PQC traffic. So that's what I just want to understand. Any roadmap, any discussions around like when these browsers natively start supporting full PQC?
Natively anyway it's supported.
No, but now it is a hybrid that is getting supported.
Yeah.
Essentially removing the support is easy, but essentially the entire ecosystem will not be supportive of only PQC. So TLS 103 if you are using, then you can enable right? You can only PQC only your browser is not ready.
That's what I'm asking. So now any like from hybrid to full PQC. Support from the browser perspective, any timelines like Google or
no instead of timelines, if you See, instead of timelines, you should look at this NIST. They highlighted, I think it's a US security agency. You look at this ECDSA when they will disallow by 2035. And it will be deprecated after 2030. So that's the timeline, 2029 to 30. We have to move to native PQC.
One thing that privately I can share, this may be accelerated. NIST, I was told, is relooking at this timeline. So you will see some acceleration from 2035 to probably 2030s. Australia, I think, is in around 2030, Israel 2029, but 2032 is now what people are saying, 2030, 2032.
Yeah, like Teza mentioned with Israel, I'm working with a couple of Israeli vendors. They're quite fast when it comes to PQC migration. I was very surprised.
Because I think they have a mandate to be...
They said the directors will be held responsible.
Oh.
Who are the directors here?
Specific named individuals here. Yes, specific named individuals.
You have to prepare, compare, and the directors will be held responsible for this. So obviously everything will falls in place from top down.
Okay, I think Mayank has given me 5 minutes to wrap it up quickly, so let me quickly go through this. So the next steps we are doing is crypto agility. So what we're trying to do is tomorrow, NIST has said MLCAM 512 is good to go for production. Tomorrow, you look at the time they have taken so many iterations from 2016 to now, so many varieties has been changed. Initially they used some other algorithm, and finally the last three. Tomorrow, after 1 year, after 2029, they will say, hey, MLCAM is not safe, we have to move. So how are we gonna mitigate that plan? So what we are looking at is this crypto agility deployment. So what is this is basically we have a crypto officer, and then we will have a crypto policy management, and then using crypto policy as code repo, we will have a PQ station cryptographic management platform. This build server gonna deploy those to API gateway web server, and could be other third-party vendors also can be integrated. And this is all configurable using configuration management or maybe XML file. So this is the next step solution we are looking. This is the crypto agility part. So it's the same thing what we have proven so far, what we are working on it. So, and this is the white paper, co-author with Prasanna, his team, and our OCBC team. My boss also there, Robin Fu and all. So this paper was recently released to archive, and also the Cypher cryptography, yeah. So let's look at OCBC quantum journey. Let me wrap it up in 5 minutes. So we started way back in 2022. We did Singtel QKD pilot. So we done 2 QKD pilots, quantum key distribution with Singtel and as well as with SPTEL. Singtel one is data center to data center, point-to-point network, IPsec layer, DWDM, and MACsec layer. The 3 network layers of the network OSI model. And we have used Huawei. We even worked with Cisco. To be very honest, Cisco was not developing the SKIP protocol. And we were speaking with Bangalore team and also in US team. Because without that, this project was being halted for quite long. And Cisco doesn't support the native EATSI, and we have to use SKIP protocol. And then we did MAS project. We also won the OpenGov Award and also the Singapore FinTech Festival. It's a very big festival in Singapore. Every year it happens. We were the top listed for that. And we also released MAS QKD white paper. You can look at it, MAS Sandbox white paper. And now, and not only that, we also did computing use cases. We work with National Quantum Computing Hub. A lot of partners later in the end of the slide I will show. We work with NUS SMU, you saw in the video. And then now current our focus, everything is on PQC. We pause for a while for QKD now. We pivoting everything to PQC. The first and foremost is CBOM. And that's where PQ station expertise will come in. We are going to build the crypto analyzer. Basically, a lot of times what you see is more like a batch mode or offline mode. Now we are going to monitor the real-time traffic, and we use the PCAP files, and then we decode those, and we're going to build the inventory. Once we do the inventory, we will have a quantum safe migration playbook, quantum risk assessment, then hybrid PQC operationalization. And just now we were talking that we want to move the full PQC. That's our target state. And not only technology we are implementing, we also certified around 100 over people in the quantum technologies with CQT, Center of Quantum Technology, National University of Singapore. And this is our CBOM. And you look at the traffic, not only that, we also have HSM, Vault, and KMS. All has to be mapped. I know, as Girish mentioned, there is no way you can do 100%. So we have to do like agile way. Not I will build CBOM and then migrate. That is not possible. We have to be more agile, not a waterfall way. And that's our target state architecture. And that's why we always work with gateways, CDN vendors, load balancer, and all. And this is our MAS collaboration ecosystem. Mr. Vincent Loy is the head of MAS, and HSBC CO and OCBC. And on the right-hand side is my big boss, so I work with him on the quantum side. And on the left is from NTU and the SMU, and then NUS. So we also have quantum talent pathway, quantum generalist, and quantum specialist within the bank. And we also do internal training. And the Professor Rivon Trost is there, and we attended the CQT NUS. They have their quantum safe network. So this is the whole mapping of OCBC use cases so far have done on quantum safe communication and quantum computing. So there are, in 2026, new use cases are there, but it's not approved to be published here. So I'm just showing you the 2025 ones. So, so this is my last slide. So I just want to highlight the national coordinating partners. So we have National Quantum Office. We work very closely with them. Then we also have National Quantum Computing Hub, National Quantum Safe Network. These are all government entities. And then we have IHLs, NUS, SMU, and NTU. So NTU, basically, I work with Prasanna very closely. And CQT NUS is also a center of quantum technologies. All research scientists, we work very closely with them. Then we have media partners, Singapore FinTech Festival. Then we have technology partners, telcos like SPTEL, Spectral, and then National Supercomputing Center and Singtel. So this is the one. And National Quantum Fabulous Foundry we have. And I also forgot to mention, we work with a lot of embassies like Netherlands Embassy, French Embassy, Swedish, Norwegian, and also Israeli Embassy. And the reason for this collaboration is to bring all the startups to work together and to define the standards. So that's it about OCBC quantum journey.